finish out, obviously, this season anytime you preach on Thanksgiving week, it's hard for your mind not to go to the topic of Thanksgiving, thankfulness, gratitude. And of course, that's where my mind went. And it's amazing how God puts things together. God had been working on my heart with this message probably a couple weeks ago. Didn't know exactly how it was going to come together. And then lo and behold, Pastor preached what he did Sunday about Sarah and Abraham and Isaac. And that's what we're going to talk about. If you've turned to Genesis chapter 22, you realize that it's about Abraham and Isaac. He even mentioned part of this story toward the end of his message, but we're going to look at it tonight, maybe from a different perspective than you've ever heard of the story of Abraham and Isaac before. You probably all know this chapter if you've been in Sunday school, if you've gone through Kevin's Sunday school class, if you've been in church for a while. You've probably gone over Genesis 22. It's Abraham offering his son Isaac. It's when God said, Abraham, I want you to go up to Mount Moriah and offer and give your son Isaac to me. You're probably familiar with that story, but we'll look at it again tonight. So let's look at Genesis chapter 22, and we will look at verse 1. We'll start in verse 1, okay? You ready? Let's read this. Follow along with me, and I think it will be a help for us all. And it came to pass, after these things, that God did tempt Abraham. Really, a word there would be test Abraham. Of course, God doesn't tempt anyone. The devil does that. And said unto him, Abraham, and he said, Behold, here I am. And he said, Take now thy son, thy only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him therefore a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I tell thee of. And Abraham rose up early in the morning, and saddled his ass, and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son, and clave the wood for the burnt offerings, and rose up, and went to the place of which God had told him. Then on the 3rd day, Abraham lifted up his eyes, and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said unto his young men, Abide ye here with the ass, and I and the lad will go yonder, and worship, and come again to you. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering, and laid it upon Isaac his son. And he took the fire in his hand, and a knife, and they went both of them together. And Isaac spake unto Abraham his father, and said, My father. And he said, Here am I, my son. And he said, Behold, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? And Abraham said, My son, God will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. So they went both of them together, and they came to the place which God had told him of. Abraham built an altar there, and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hand, and took the knife to slay his son. And the angel of the Lord called unto him out of heaven, and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Lay not thine hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest God, seeing thou hast not withheld thy son, thy only son, from me. Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. Abraham went and took the ram, and offered him for a burnt offering in the stead of his son. Abraham called the name of that place Jehovah-Jireh, as it is said to this day, In the mount of the Lord it shall be seen. During this Thanksgiving season, our world for a fleeting moment becomes focused on gratitude. Our world becomes focused on thankfulness and appreciation. No matter the spiritual condition of a man or a woman at this time of year, whether they're lost or whether they're saved, whether they go to church or whether they do not, this season, their hearts are thankful for many things. Most of the time, when we start to list things that we are thankful for, it goes something like this, okay? If we've done this before, but if we ask teenagers to come up here and say something you're thankful for, this is what it would sound like. It would sound like this. I'm thankful for my family. I'm thankful for my friends. I'm thankful for my home. I'm thankful for my church. I'm thankful for my health. I'm thankful for my wealth. I'm thankful for my clothes. I'm thankful for my food. I'm thankful for, and you fill in the blank. That's how we show, that's how people list off what they're thankful for. And the list can go on. And of course, we could do that tonight, and no doubt it would be sincere and it would be right, and you should be thankful for those things. The fact that you have health as a young man or a young woman, you should be thankful for that. Please do not get me wrong while I preach this message. because it's going to be a little bit different, but you should be thankful for those things. You should be thankful for the ability to see and the ability to hear and the ability to play a sport and the ability to play a musical instrument and to sing a song and to talk and to be in the right mind and to have clothes and to have a place to live. You should be thankful for all of those things. Well, there's nothing wrong with that, but there's a really big difference. Or let me say it like this. There is no difference between you being thankful for those things and a lost world being thankful for those things. The lost person who's maybe never even gone into a church, if you asked him during this Thanksgiving season, what are you thankful for? Guess what it's probably going to sound like? Pretty similar to your list. Even the people who have no clue about Jesus, sometimes I've seen people who are lost and yet they can be more thankful about life than Christians. What I'm trying to get you to see is there's really not a difference between you being thankful for a place to live than a lost person being thankful for a place to live, or you being thankful for your food, as you should, than the lost person being thankful for their food. And so there must be something more to a Christian's thankfulness than just saying, I'm thankful for my iPhone. I'm thankful for my shoes. I'm thankful for my car. Again, you should be. But your gratitude must be deeper than I'm thankful for. Making a list and saying this is what I'm thankful for, this is what a lot of times we connect this Thanksgiving season with. Maybe even in your family, you've sat down at the Thanksgiving dinner table and you go around the table and you take turns saying what you're thankful for. But as a Christian, our gratitude must go further than the materialistic things or even the people in this world that we love. We're talking about true thankfulness. In fact, I want to convince you tonight that a true heart of thanksgiving is being thankful for nothing. If you're going to have a true heart of thanksgiving this season, you must be thankful for nothing. Let's be honest. It's easy to be thankful as Americans. And yet, we're some of the most least thankful people. If you've ever traveled to any other country besides America, if you've ever gone on a missions trip, you find out really quick that people have way less than us, but yet they live more thankful lives. But truly, as an American, it's easy to be grateful. It's easy to be thankful because you have a lot to put on that list. If we all took the time to fill out the list, what about this? What if we just started with this since we're coming out of this experience? I'm thankful for power. And I'm thankful for clean water. Can we all be thankful for those things tonight? I think we can relate to that more so than we ever have before. And so as Americans, it's so easy because we are so blessed. But too many times our thankfulness is tied to our stuff or is tied to our list. So let me ask you this question. If you didn't have that home, would you still be thankful? If you didn't have that iPhone, would you still be thankful? If you didn't have those clothes, would you still be thankful? You with me? What if tomorrow, what if next week you found out you had cancer? Would you still be thankful? Do you understand what I'm saying? A heart of gratitude has to go deeper than making a list and saying what I'm thankful for. You with me? Too many times our thankfulness is tied to the stuff. It's to the PlayStation, it's to the car, it's to the shoes, it's to the phone. And often our thankfulness, although genuine, I'm not saying you're not genuine in it. I think you probably are thankful for your PlayStation. I think you probably are. And I'm not saying it's not genuine. It's not true gratitude. Because if any of those items were to be taken away tonight, can I ask you this question, honest before God? If we took your list and started taking those items away, would it affect your gratitude? Would it affect your thankfulness? Honest before God. I'm asking myself the question too. Tonight, if you got home and some of the things that were on your list were no longer there, would you still be happy? And would you still be thankful? See, this is a reality for a lot of people in our community because some of the things that would have been on their list last Thanksgiving, they do not have this Thanksgiving. Their list has changed. And what I want you to understand as a young person is if this Thanksgiving, your thankfulness is tied to your stuff, that means that, God forbid, we go through anything like we did these past few months, past few weeks. Those things can be taken away very quickly. And what if you didn't have that list next Thanksgiving? Would you still be thankful? There's no difference between you and a lost person when you are thinking or being thankful for stuff. A lost person who has no clue about eternity, if you go up to them and ask them, what are you thankful for? The clothes on my back. Our thankfulness as Christian has to go deeper because we know more. And this is the lesson I believe in this passage that God was trying to teach Abraham. True thanksgiving, true gratitude is when I become thankful for nothing. Thankfulness is not tied to the gifts, but is tied to the giver. Thankfulness is not tied to the blessing, but is tied to the blesser. As we were reminded Sunday, Abraham had to wait a long time for his son, Isaac. Did you pay attention Sunday to Pastor Winston? Did you listen to the message? Did you hear what he was saying about Abraham and Sarah and everything they went to and the pain and the loss and the questions and the understanding and wondering if they ever was going to have a son? And Abraham had to wait a long time for his son Isaac. And one thing I've learned about waiting in life, the longer you wait for something and when you receive it, the more you cherish it and the more you love it and you take care of it. It's true. The longer you wait, the more you appreciate it, the more you're thankful for it. And there is no doubt Isaac was Abraham's pride and joy. Do you believe that? Can you imagine being 100 years old waiting on the promise? You got the promise back in your 30s and you waited 70 years and finally God gave you a son. Can you imagine what that made Abraham feel like? Can you imagine how much he loved his son Isaac? No doubt this is how he would introduce his son. This is my son. Proudly say, this is my son Isaac. Any dad that's worth his salt loves to introduce their children. This is my boy. This is my daughter. This is my son. No doubt Abraham was the same way. A sense of joy and a sense of satisfaction would come up in his heart every time he would lay eyes on Isaac. Anytime he would go anywhere with Isaac. I'm sure he wanted to teach Isaac everything about life, and he loved Isaac. And in Abraham's eyes, Isaac finally gave meaning and purpose to Abraham's life. Those of you who are parents in this room, you understand what that means as your children. You understand how children can give your life purpose and meaning, but on another level for Abraham. Because what did God tell Abraham decades ago? I'm going to make of you a great nation, right? Your seed is going to multiply. Well, it's going to be really hard to do that when you don't have a son, right? And so for 70 years, he waited for this promised son. And so, no doubt, when Abraham looked at Isaac, he saw his purpose in life. He saw his meaning to live. How in the world was Abraham ever going to be a father of many nations if he didn't even have a son? And yet when he saw his son Isaac that God finally gave him after waiting, he saw his meaning, he saw his purpose. And could it be, the Bible doesn't come out and say it, but could it be that Abraham loved Isaac so much that he loved Isaac more than God? Could it be? Could it be that Abraham a father of our faith, loved his son so much that he loved him more than God. And maybe that's why Genesis 22 exists. Because God sees the heart. His life and mind was consumed about his son Isaac. It was the first thing he thought about when he woke up, and it was the last thing he thought about when he went to bed, was his son Isaac. Can I ask you a question? What's the first thing you think about when you wake up in the morning? And what's the last thing you think about when you go to bed at night? Because that's what you love. Amen. Abraham, what are you thankful for? Abraham, before Mount Moriah, what are you thankful for? I'm thankful for my son Isaac. I'm thankful for him. And it sounds so spiritual. You should be. You should be thankful for your son Isaac. And yet God says this to Abraham in verse 2 of chapter 22. And he said, take now thy son, thy only son Isaac, watch what the Bible says, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering, one of the mountains which I will tell thee of. See, what we learn from this story and what God is wanting to teach Abraham from this story and even us tonight is that God was never truly concerned about getting Isaac from Abraham. God was more concerned about Abraham's heart than his son. And tonight, God's concerned with your heart. What do you love? Is there a chance that there is something in this life that you love more than God? You would never say it verbally. Nobody would say that verbally, but we know how easy it is in this world to become so consumed with our things and with our lives and with our people. There's something in this world that you love more than God. And it's so easy for people and things to take up residence in the temple of our heart. And we don't mean to, but you know what they turn into? It's a nasty little word from the Old Testament called an idol. And that's exactly what things can become in our hearts. And here's what I believe. I believe Isaac became an idol for Abraham. He loved him so much. He almost worshiped his son. And it's so easy. As a parent, you can understand how much you love your children and how easy that can become priority in your life. Then you take it to the next level of where Abraham was and Sarah in their lives. I believe Isaac became an idol. And whether we admit it or not, we end up worshiping our blessings. We love our blessings. As an American, it's even more so than any other country and any other culture that we love our things, and we're so consumed with our things. And all the way to Mount Moriah and on the way up the mountain, Abraham thought he understood what it meant to be thankful. But I believe Abraham experienced true gratitude at the end of this story. Let's look at it really quick. Verse 9. And they came to the place which God had told him of, and Abraham built an altar there and laid the wood in order and bound Isaac his son and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hand and took the knife to slay his son. What a crazy story this is, truly, if you really break it down, that a dad would bind his son up and would lay him on an altar to kill him. What kind of God would ever demand anything out of that from a father? But don't you love the story, the full story, verse 11? And the angel of the Lord called unto him out of heaven, said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Lay not thy hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him, for now I know that thou fearest God. You know what God's saying there? Now I know I have your heart. Now I know that you love me more than anybody else or anything else in this world. Verse 13, and Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered him up for a burnt offering in the stead of his son. And Abraham called the name of the place Jehovah Jireh, my provider. Isaac had become an idol in Abraham's heart. As it was in these verses where God did spiritual heart surgery and had to remove the idol of Abraham's heart. So it is tonight that God wants to remove some idols from your heart. See, going up the mountain, I believe Abraham was thankful for Isaac. But on the way back down the mountain, I believe Abraham was thankful to God. There's a big difference between being thankful for and being thankful to. You with me? And we're really good at being thankful for things because we hold on to them. This is mine. But see, Abraham made a decision. I'm going to take it up the mountain and I'm going to give it to God. And the most thankful person on this earth that has ever lived was Abraham coming down the mountain. Because Abraham was thankful to God for his provision. He no longer possessed what he loved because what he loved was given to God. The most thankful person in this room is going to be the person when they are walking back down from their mountain of sacrifice is thankful for nothing, but yet thanking God for just him. Do you know what Jehovah Jireh says? Abraham at the end before they walk back down the mountain, Carlin, it says that Abraham named the place Jehovah Jireh. Do you know what Jehovah Jireh means? The Lord will provide. My provider. What an interesting name Abraham chose to put on that mountain. You know what it was for Abraham? It was the place where God took back over his heart. He gave up his idol. He gave up what he loved, what his life was consumed with, and God took his rightful place back on the throne of Abraham's heart, and he said, I worship you in this place because no longer am I worshiping the provision, but I'm worshiping the provider. Jehovah Jireh, my provider. And Abraham came to the place where he worshiped God for who he was. I'm going to ask Josh if he would come up and play something quietly. Teenager, the whole world. And I know what I'm speaking. I'm speaking to a bunch of 13, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds who are growing up in the most materialistic society in the history of the world. But teenager, the whole world is in love with their toys. The whole world is in love with their stuff. But when was the last time? Listen, it's Thanksgiving season. Somebody, if not your parents, over the next few days, they're going to come up to you and they're going to say, what are you thankful for? I promise you, somebody will. They're either going to put you on the spot. Maybe somebody already has. Maybe you've already gone through this. What are you thankful for? And when was the last time you were thankful for nothing? Because it's not yours. Because you've given it all back to God. I can't be thankful for something I don't own. And you see what? I have this thing, the wallet in my pocket, but guess what? This ain't mine. This is God's. I'm thankful for the car that's out there that I'm going to drive home, but guess what? It's not mine. It's God's. And teenager, what I'm asking you is, when was the last time you were thankful for nothing, but you were just thankful for Him?